So I recently shaved my face, and now I just look like a baby. It's fine. I'm used to it. Alright. Hi guys, I'm Joey Geither, here with JG Multimedia, and today we're going to be talking about the process of printing your own photos. Now, I recently took a photo that I really enjoyed. It was, out on the Lake Erie, where I'm from, Cleveland, and it was a little underexposed, but it was a good composition. I think the sun setting kind of added to the aesthetic of it, kind of a retro futuristic aesthetic. So I thought it was really cool, and after bringing it into Lightroom, I decided, wow, this is one of my best photos that I've ever taken, so I wanted to print it out. So I kind of wanted to take you guys through the printing out process of your photos, because I have printed out photos in my photography class that I took in college. However, this is the first time that I'm really printing one out on my own, kind of my own free will print, if you will. So yeah, I'm going to take you guys through that process. With how photography has changed to more digital aspect, you're no longer in the dark room printing out your photos with chemicals and stuff like that. I had never claimed to do that. The closest I got to was taking a trip with my middle school, and they gave you those little film cameras, disposable cameras that you could take pictures with. You get like 23 or 24 pictures with them. I thought it was the coolest thing ever as a kid, but also I dropped it a few times. Every time I dropped it, it'd flash, and the whole class would look at me like, what are you doing? And it was me taking a picture as the camera dropped and hit the ground. I don't know how they turned out. I wish I still had them. But yeah, so I'm no hipster. I haven't ever printed in a darkroom, but I think we have lost that process. The first half was going out and getting the photos. The second half was, editing it. And in today's digital age, a lot of the photos that you take now, once you put it in Lightroom or you edit it and then you post it to social media, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, whatever, that's it for the process. It's done. So I think it's important to print out your photos just so you can see how they come out. And it's different than having your photos on a digital screen, a little digital screen where you're just looking at the image in super high quality on whatever platform that is. When you're printing it out, you're actually going to be able to see, more details where it's lacking. Maybe it's the saturation's too much or it's underexposed, because it's big and it's in front of you. You're going to be able to see all that. So it's just kind of a way to understand your photography a little bit more and see where you're lacking or where you're excelling. So without further ado, we're going to hop right into the process of what I did when I printed out my first photo. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom. This is the photo that I decided that, I wanted to print out and make a poster of. Once I edited it, of course. But I wanted to edit it because it was a little bit underexposed. However, I did like the sunset coming in through the window panes, kind of reflecting that orangish light. I also noticed that, the sky in the background looks like it has a little bit of color that I could pull out. So I decided just to edit it and see where I could get it to. And after the edit, you could see I strained it out a little bit and was able to bring in a whole bunch of color. The sky, you could see here, bringing in the purples and a little bit of orange. It also reflecting off the building, matching the sunset. So I think it came out really well. So I decided after editing it that I wanted to print it out into a poster and hang it in my room, because this was a photo that I'm actually really proud of. One of my better ones, and maybe that's just my opinion and you guys think it's buns, but I decided to print it, so I'm going to take you through a little bit more of the process of printing out your photos. However, before we get to that, I did notice that there are porta potties here, as well as a few people in the image kind of obscuring the building. But I did like the kayaker, but there is a smudge up here as well. So quite a few little imperfections that we're just going to pull this into Photoshop so we can perfect it a little bit further. But before we do that, we're going to have to export it. So we're going to go up here and export. Alright, so we're just going to export it as a TIFF file. In the full size. I shot it in RAW, so it's however many pixels, it's like 3,000 something, but it's going to be the full size, 16 bits, and that's just so that we can get the highest resolution out of it, because we are printing it out and we want the most pixels per inch that we can get, just so the resolution's higher and it looks better when it's printed out. So we're going to go ahead and export that. I already did. So we're just going to pull it into Photoshop now. So as you can see here, we've pulled it up in Photoshop. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a smudge here, there's people in front of the building, as well as porta potties. So after a little bit of editing, I was able to come up with this. See, they're disappeared. They're here, now they're gone. Here, now they're gone. Here, gone. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. And so after editing this further, it just made me want to print it out a little bit more. So we're gonna go ahead and export this file now that it's all pretty. And we're going to export it as, and so I've already actually scaled this up, but what I did was actually scale it up. So as you can see here, it's like 12,000 pixels by 8,000 pixels, and I just had the original and I scaled it up to like 200, 250 I think it was, and you know, it keeps the resolution for the most part intact. Just gives me more pixels to work with without, you know, spreading the image too thin, because I did want to print out a poster sized image of this photo. So once I get all those settings in place, PNG is fine, and you can see how many pixels it has. It looks great here. I'm going to go ahead and export that. I already did, so you know, I'm going to now bring it into InDesign so I can kind of create the outline as well as the dimensions for the poster I'm going to print. So once we open up InDesign, we're going to click on Create New, and it's going to bring up these dimensions that we can mess around with here. So for mine, I want my orientation to be horizontal, as well as this being in inches. And so the width is actually 40 inches, and the height is 27. And I believe these are the dimensions just for any kind of movie size poster. So that's how how big I want my image to be. So then we're going to open. So I dropped in my image, and this looks a little bit too big almost, but you know, that's fine for the amount of pixels I'm working with. And that white border around it's just the bleed that I have set up, but I can I'll show you guys how to do that too as well. So there we have that. Alright, that was a little bit harder than it needs to be. However, okay, so I have the image set up here. Looks good, it's set up. Looks like it's a good resolution for being on a, you know, 40-inch by 27-inch document. But we are going to click Image and Display Performance and just click on High Quality so we could see, okay, that looks better. That it is actually high quality, so you could see it kind of how it'll turn out if you print it. However, if you're still not sure of the quality, we can actually check the pixels per inch. Usually when you're printing it out, you want it around 300. You know, you could kind of squeeze by with 150, kind of. But really what you're shooting for good printed photos is 300 pixels per inch. Okay, so if you want to check the PPI of your image further, you can go up in the advanced settings here and just check links and set final big. And here you can see the actual PPI versus the effective PPI. And what we care about is the effective PPI. The actual PPI is the pixels per inch when it was that big scaled up photo that I brought in when I first opened up InDesign and dropped this photo in. But the effective PPI is what it's scaled down to. So what it looks like now, that's 300 pixels per inch, or 313 pixels per inch. So that's going to be perfect. That's going to print out just fine. So we're going to go ahead and export this. So export, and yeah, PDF's fine. Just save it to documents. Hopefully I had no embarrassing documents there. I don't think I did. It's fine. So we're going to go down to marks and bleeds, and you can set up the bleeds here. For mine, I did 0.25 inches because I'm printing out a poster sized image, so the frame I have, there's not a whole lot of give to that, but usually people can go up to, you know, for printing photos, they go up to anywhere from 1 to 3 inches, and you can set that bleed up here. You could do crop marks as well as bleed marks just to help you cut it out. So that's just going to give you a little bit more spacing around it, this little nice white border you see here. And so once you export that, you should be able to then set it up and send it to your printer so that you can print it out. So yeah, now once you're ready to send your photo to the printer, you're just gonna, you know, for me it was transferring it to just a different laptop or desktop that had my printer software on it. So once I transferred it to that computer, I opened up the software, and you're actually able to, at least for the printer that I have a Roland that I have access to, a big boy, big industrial sized boy. My hands are this big, that big. Obviously if it's printing off 40 inches by 27 inches, it's huge. But once I open that software, I'm able to select the quality of my print. For me, I kept the aspect ratio the same, but for most printers you're able to kind of change and adjust the size of it, the scaling. But once I did that, then I selected the type of paper for my print. Mine was just photo matte paper, and that's just, that's the matte. It's not glossy. There's also, you could choose glossy paper, a bunch of other kinds of paper that I would have no idea what they are. I just know mine was photo matte. And that's just going to affect the overall look of it, and also the print of the ink on the paper. It might change and vary how your photo prints in the end. So once you select that, you're able to just go and print it out. And for mine, my industrial size printer, I had to select cut after, otherwise I just have to go in and manually do it, or just like tell it to manually do it, but it's still automatic, but it just saves me a step. But yeah, so once I print it out, I'm going to show you guys the cutting and kind of, well, it is just the cutting of my giant poster image. As you can see, it's right here, and boy, was that, my room is small and it's hot in my room. So yeah, I'll show you guys how I cut it out. And you know, I could have brought it to my work because they have a nice big cutting board area with nice rulers and utensils. Instead, I did it in my room because, you know, I'm getting paid there to do my job, which is not cutting my poster. So I didn't want to go there and bring it and cut it out and waste, you know, time I should be working for them. So I cut it out at home, and I had a lack of utensils or tools. I had a little cutting board that I had from college, a ruler that did not fit the length of my poster, and I don't even think it was a cutting ruler. I don't think it is. It could be, maybe. I don't know. But, you know, the only tool that I had that was viable for what I was doing was my X-Acto knife, which I put in a new sharp blade, which you guys will see, because you don't want it rusty and dull. Could fray the edges of your poster if you're printing it out. So yeah, enjoy me struggling to cut out my poster and seeing the final result. Yeah, guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys learned how to print your guys' photos. You know, maybe you don't have the exact same steps that I do. This is just how I do it. But if you're able to learn from it, that's great. I mean, everybody's process is a little bit different, I guess. But it worked out for me. And kind of a few things that I learned from printing my photo. One would probably be not to print it so big again, just because, you know, it was a pain to cut it that big if I don't have the utensils or tools for it yet. But I also learned that maybe it was a little bit underexposed. I could have brought the brightness up a little bit, as well as maybe fix the white balance of it, because it is a little bit of a shade of yellow or hue or whatever. I took color theory, I should know that, I don't. But yeah, so I could probably fix those things. However, I'm not going to reprint this giant picture that I did. I still love it. I think it looks awesome, sunsetting, the glass panes, and I'm really proud of how it came out. So that's going to do it for this video. As always, like, subscribe, follow my Instagram account because that's the good one. Also, look up my website. It'll be linked down below. And hit me up if you have any inquiries. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. So, I'm going to show you guys it hung up in my room. Not just here, you know. But, you know, it's going to hang over my bed as I'm sleeping. And also, Gandalf's going to watch me sleep because he's also there. And who doesn't like Gandalf? See ya! I can help you out. I can help